Yadi Bharati Chakinchit Svera Sadhitashir Dvijavaramani Pantya Mukti Shuktya Tadakin Shama Sundara Shikanda Shekara Smera Sauravi Manohara Radhika Sikamam Kripanidhi Swapya Charanachin Kinkarim Kuru Prananatha Vrishabhanu Nandini Shrimukaptarasalola Satpada Radhika Paratale Kritashtitim Tvam Bhajami Rasikenja Shirikara Samvidhaya Dasane Trinam Vibo Prartaye Vrajamahendra Nandana Astu Mohana Tavati Vallabha Janma Janmani Marishmi Priya. First of all, offering unlimited Dandava pranams from my heart at the lotus feet of my worshipful Diksha Gurudevi Shrimati Shamrani Devi, and to my Param Gurudevs and to the Vishnu Vishnu Parasto to the Sachi Shima Shira Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Mama Shri Gurudev, and to the Vishnu Parasto to the Sachi Shima Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada, and Jagat Guru Shri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, the entire Rupanuga Guru Varga, and all assembled devotees. So tonight we continued our study of Bhagavad Gita. We have Bhagavad Gita. So this one verse is coming up this week for me. We actually learned it the other day, but it's coming up in various ways, different readings and stuff like that, and it covers a kind of a vast area about the soul and about bhakti. So I figured it was relevant for us. So we'll pick up where we left off, but then eventually my plan, is to maybe talk about this verse unless the conversation goes otherwise, which is always very wonderful as well. So we left off at chapter 2, text 25. Krishna is, of course, speaking to Arjuna in his lamentation and giving him Atma Tattva. Everyone understands what is Atma Tattva?
Tattva from your soul, from your Atma.
Tattva, everyone knows this word Tattva? A very important word, actually. Tattva. Tattva means like a category of truth. Like a tattva. Like a category of philosophical truth is called a tattva. And so then Atma, it refers to the soul. Atma means soul. And so Atma Tattva means the truth regarding the soul. Yeah.
Then what's a jiva?
Jiva is same as Atma.
Jiva is an Atma and interchangeable?
Yeah, same.
Jiva is like something which has life. All the G's.
It could be a plant.
It should be a plant.
Yes, anywhere there's life, anywhere there's consciousness, there's Jiva, there's Atma. It's like it's just a different name for the same, for soul, for spirit soul.
Like we are all the Jivas made by Krishna, living beings.
Yeah, so then some of those Jivas, some of those Atmas are in trees, so yeah, sure, or bugs, or anywhere you see life, there has to be their Atma or Jiva. And so then this Tattva, there's like other Tattvas, like, let's say like Bhagavan. This word Bhagavan refers to the Lord, Krishna. So there's something called Bhagavan Tattva. It's the Tattva regarding Bhagavan. There's so many. There's Maya Tattva, Maya regarding the material energy. There's Bhakti Tattva, regarding what is the truth illuminating devotion. There's Rasa Tattva, what is the truth of relationship. And there's even Radha Tattva. So there's so many different categories of these truths. So anyways, this one that Krishna is kind of exploring and explaining is called Atma Tattva.
Where are we? I'm sorry.
Text 25.
Oh, chapter 2, 25, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
89 page on this one. Everybody will have a different books.
I'm gonna read actually like starting 2 verses back just because to hear again is nice. Prabhupada says actually a nice at the end of one of these purports. He says right here, repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. Nice, so you see that Krishna is repeating himself for our benefit. So I'm just going to read out loud, starting at text 23. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Very significant. And then also actually in regards to what you're saying, Prabhupada is kind of mentioning in this purport here. He says there's this word in this verse, a sarvagata. And it's actually this phrase, sarvagata in Sanskrit, is actually referenced commonly to show that according to the Vedas, there's souls everywhere in God's creation. Sarvagata, there's souls everywhere. So yeah, in trees. And then even it's explained that there's souls in different forms that inhabitate like planets and stuff that we actually can't see with our eyes. Like even souls that can live and exist within fire. Because the Atma is not, like we were saying, it's actually not bound by one type of body. You can't be withered by the wind or a weapon or anything. So, and so Prabhupada actually mentions this here in the purport. He says the word sarvagata, all-pervading, is significant because there is no doubt that living entities are all over God's creation. They live on the land, in the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within fire. Yeah. So that's just a point to know. Sarvagata, famous. In the verse of text 24.
24.
Sorry, I started a little back. Nitya Sarvagata Stanur. Yeah. Yeah, because according to the Vedas, there's life everywhere. So this is kind of the Praman here. Okay, text 25. Praman means like a proof. Like a praman. Like if someone says something, we usually when we speak, we want to have at least I guess at any time we want to have like a praman, like an authority. It's like a backup. So when a lot of times if someone's explaining a point, then they'll say, "This is my praman," and they'll point to it from the scripture or something that a great saintly person said, so that they're not just making things up. It's called praman. Okay, next verse, 25. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Yeah. Next verse. If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. I was going to say, too, to everyone, especially online or everyone participating, too, if you do have the time, it is really nice to read these, to go through all these purports, if you do end up having the time throughout the week, because you'll see that it's actually not every day that you get to read through this Bhagavad Gita. So since we're going through it, it's a really nice opportunity to actually take, because we just don't have the capacity to go, into everything. But there's a lot of really, really amazing stuff being said in these commentaries from Prabhupada. If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. So Krishna's referring here actually to the atheistic or the material conception that life is born with the body, and then once the body's dead, then life dies. But he actually makes this very interesting argument that Even if you believe this, still there's no reason for lamentation. And then the next verse he says, for one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Next verse, 28. Sorry, we're going a little quick. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? So he's really, really getting this point about the soul is completely separate from the material energy. And he said even if life is there with the body and then the body dies, then still there's no reason to lament, because really what is the loss? It's like a spider whose like web has come from the spider and then it goes back into the spider. He's kind of giving this picture. He's trying to almost instill a little bit of like a detachment in the mind from the emotional circumstances. And there's a part in the purport here where Prabhupada makes a really incredible statement and talking about kind of the nature of the material energy. And I think it's really, really sobering and powerful to meditate on what he's saying here in the last paragraph of this purport of text 28. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, Nitya syokta sharinaha, but that soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of a dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king. But when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body. We get that? Understand what he's saying? Kind of?
Yeah, when the material body perishes, there's no need to lament it, whether you believe there's a soul or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the simple. That's the thing there. So it's like it's just significant. What he's really trying to explain is the temporality of the material energy. We've been talking about this a lot, and it's not that it's not like this philosophy is not meant to create like doom or anything in anyone's mind. Actually, this even the material energy is sacred energy of Krishna. And even the earth is Bhagavan Shakti. It's the divine potency and energy of the Lord. And so the material energy is actually, interestingly enough, also eternal. So matter is also actually eternal, but it's always eternally changing. So this is what he's saying about it. Prabhupada here compares it to a dream. He says he goes to the extent that the material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. So in Sanskrit, this is called a swapna stan. Swapna stan. The material, this world. It's called swapna stan. Stan means like a place that you're situated, and swapna means like a dreamlike state. And again, then he gives the analogy here that if we're sleeping, we might dream that we're flying through the sky, but then when I wake up, then I see actually I'm sitting in my bed. And so then where's the dream? So he's giving a very vivid explanation, and I thought especially this statement, the Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Right there, it's like, boom, very, very, very powerful. Because we'll see that if we are only in the conception that I am this material body and mind, then our beginning of life starts when we are born from our parents, and then we die, and then that's our life. But the Vedic wisdom is encouraging self-realization that actually the soul has always been existing and has gone through many, 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 many lifetimes. And then with a little bit of acknowledgement and conception of this reality of the soul, then you'll see actually that I'm on a whole different journey than just, being born from my biological, or however you call it, parents. And then, I'm gonna accumulate items or do whatever I'm gonna do in this world. And then I'm gonna leave this body. And that's it. But actually you'll see that it gives a much, much bigger picture that the soul is actually on a big journey. And that journey is actually, back to God, essentially. But it's mapped out all beautifully and perfectly in something called the Priti line. So this Priti line gives the life of the soul. The life of the story of us actually. And so it's been charted out by acharyas, and it's the reason why it's called the Priti line is Priti is actually a word for love. It's a Sanskrit word for love, Priti. So it's called this line because it's stages of development of Priti. Because the soul, Krishna is giving so much information specifically actually about the soul in relationship to this material world. He's not really saying that much about what the soul does. He's like referencing the soul in relationship to the material. It can't be burned by fire, can't be cut by any weapons. So he's really actually in this, he's establishing what is the material energy and how it's temporary. But so much is given actually about the soul. And so this line says a Tao, so how many souls are going so long through so many lifetimes, and they develop something called Shraddha. Shraddha is like faith, and Shraddha is a very deep thing, and it's like a light bulb, almost like what am I doing here, and it's very primitive, like place. Is there something more than this? Is there something more than just enjoy? These kind of questions, they arise, and this Shraddha, it leads someone to what's called sadhu sangha. It becomes ripened. Sadhu sangha, and then someone's faith gets established in a sadhu. Sadhu is like a great saint, like a great sage, a sadhu. Sangha means like the association. So it leads the soul into association of saintly personalities that have realization. And if the soul is very, very fortunate, then it gets this association of a sadhu who's very, very high caliber and realization. And by their mercy, then they give the soul everything. So there's a famous verse, Brahmanda Brahmate Konya Bhagavan Ajiv Guru Krishna Prasadi Bhakti Lata Bij. So it explains Brahmanda Brahmite. Brahmanda is a name for actually this world. Brahmanda. And it says after wandering through so many lifetimes in the Brahmanda, then the soul gets, by the mercy of Krishna, the soul comes to a guru, self-realized personality. So Krishna brings that soul by accumulating so many spiritual credits over time to Guru. And then by the Guru, then everything is attained. Everything is attained by the Guru. And the process really of that. And the Guru gives something called the Bhakti Lata Bij. It's actually there already in the soul. And so this is why I'm coming to this point about what does the soul do and trying to explain something of that. So this bhakti lata bij, bhakti of course means devotion to the Supreme. I mean, that's a very simple definition. Bhakti can be explained very deeply and very vastly. But bhakti lata bij. Lata is like a little creeper, and a bij is the seed. So this saintly personality, they awaken something in the soul. They awaken actually eternal thing within the soul. And that's called Bhakti Lata Bij. And another name for that is called, that bij, that seed, is called Krishna Seva Vasana. The Vasana, the desire, Seva, to serve Krishna. The desire to serve Krishna. So by hearing and association with a guru and with the sadhus, they awaken the soul's desire to serve Krishna, which is actually there, but they are awakening it. So we follow someone named Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We all know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had many disciples, and one of his main disciples which he instructed is someone named Srila Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami. Everyone know Rupa Goswami? Yeah, Rupa Goswami. It's okay, no problem. Very amazing person to know, actually. Rupa Goswami. Goswami is like a sadhu. Actually, Goswami refers specifically to one who's mastered all of their senses. And so this person named Rupa. So when Chaitanya was on the Earth planet, he was going on a tour.
That was 500 years ago.
500 years ago, yeah, exactly. And he's actually Radha and Krishna combined into one form.
It just had the anniversary or birthday.
Yeah, the Gaura Purnima, yeah, of his appearance. Yeah, exactly. And Mahaprabhu is actually very, very deep esoteric personality in our philosophy, like at the top, because he's Radha and Krishna combined, and he's really born out of the churning of their love affairs, really, and Krishna's desire to know what is the nature of her love for him, and he can't even taste it himself, which is very inconceivable and esoteric thing. How can he not? But it has to do with their mugdata and their innocence and the nature of their love. And so, anyways, this person Mahaprabhu, the supreme person Mahaprabhu, when he toured India a lot, and he actually spread this movement that we're practicing now. So we're here on his wish, his desire. And he met a lot of people along the way that he talked to, one being Ramananda Roy, some other people like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Interestingly enough, he liked to speak philosophy. But this one person that he met was named Rupa Goswami. And he spoke with Rupa Goswami, and he described about this Bhakti Lata Bij. And he explained how when the jiva gets this Bhakti Lata Bij, then that devotee, they become like a gardener. And so they should water this Bhakti Lata Bij daily and consistently, and in this way it will grow. And it says that, how do you water this Bhakti Lata Bij? It's not just a plant. Yeah.
Devotion.
Definitely that. He specifically gives, we should water this Bhakti Lata Bij with two things called Shravana and Kirtana. Shravana and Kirtana. Shravana means hearing, and Kirtana means chanting. So there's different processes of devotional service, bhakti, and so practical terms, this is actually how we water this Bhakti Lata Bij. We water this soul for it to grow and fructify is by the process of hearing and chanting. So like what we're doing now, I'm hearing, chanting, you guys are hearing and chanting, and like this we go on. And so it's all, you'll see that most of what we're doing here actually revolves around these two very simple things. And there's more. There's actually 7 processes of bhakti, and also 9 and 5, even Rupa goes. Actually, much of this has been established by the same personality, Rupa Goswami, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told him all these things, and it's described that actually in the beginning of the creation of the Brahmanda, or the material world, Lord Krishna inspires in the heart of the creator, Lord Brahma, the knowledge in which to create the universe. There's a whole story about it. It's very beautiful, actually. Brahma's sitting, and he's born off from a lotus, and he's in darkness, and he gets inspired within the heart the knowledge to create. So he said, in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspired in the heart of Rupa Goswami how to explain Krishna Bhakti. So a lot of what we're getting is actually coming down a trickle through Rupa Goswami. And so he even explains 64 different processes of bhakti. But they narrowed it down a lot, and they came down to this Shravana and Kirtana, and Mahaprabhu, he recommended this hearing and chanting process. And so the verse that I mentioned in the beginning that I wanted to refer to, how are we doing it? Everyone is good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. If you have anything you want to say, please, by all means. So this verse is also from a conversation of I believe, Chaitanya and another person named Sanatan Goswami. And this verse, he says, Kriti Sajya Bhavet Sajya Bhava Sa Sadhana Bidha Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakityam Hridi Sajjata. So he says that the practice of bhakti, when devotional service is practiced by the senses of the material body, with the desire to attain what's called bhava, love of God, actually, love for Krishna. So on this line that I was explaining, there's adau, the wandering, the shraddha, and then the sadhu sangha, the association of the sadhus. Then there's something called bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya. So this bhajana kriya is actually the shravana and the kirtana. It's the processes of bhajan. Bhajan means like a worship, but the English word worship doesn't fully do it justice. Bhajan refers to that worship which is really full of affection and a friendly mood, affectionate mood, loving mood actually. And so bhajana kriya, and these practices of hearing and chanting are also actually coming by the mercy of the Lord, like in this verse I was saying. Guru Krishna Prasadi by Bhakti Lata Beach. It's the mercy actually of Guru that gives the bhakti. So by the mercy of Krishna, the jiva soul comes in contact with the Guru, and by the mercy of the Guru, then they engage in the Krishna Seva Vasan. They engage in the bhakti. And so we heard actually this weekend from Akanda Prabhu, he said beautifully that this bhajana kriya is coming, the activities of bhajan are coming by kripa. Kripa means mercy, and also actually coming from the kripa of Radharani. It's a very, very beautiful thing. But anyways, so this bhajana kriya, the practices of devotion, like hearing and chanting, by this process something is affected called anartha nivritti. Anartha nivritti, which means the removal of unwanted things in the heart. Unwanted things in the heart. Those things that distract us and obstruct us from our performance of devotional service. And so then the jiva is here, but then other things come like something called nishta. They have firm faith and service. Yes, nishta. Firm faith. This is actually the purpose of the jiva's life. This is my thing. This is nishta, and all of these are in degrees. Nishta, and then something called ruchi, which means taste. They start to actually taste their experience of devotional service, and they start to relish it actually, and so they get a spiritual taste. And then something called a shakti. which means really firm attachment. They have so much attachment for Krishna. They develop this attachment. And then the next one after this is called Bhav. 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 And so this is, this Bhav is described as like the first, or like the rays of sun were peeking in here. It's like if there was like the first little ray was shining in, it would be the first ray of what's called prema, or pure, full love of God, full love for Krishna. And so this verse that I was mentioning explains that the sadhana bhakti performed by the transcendental devotion performed by the material senses with the desire for this love for Krishna, bhava, is called a sadhana. Sadhana. Yeah, and so it's important when we are hearing or we're chanting or we do everything that we actually kind of like if you have a boat, you have to kind of like adjust your rudder, to decide, where am I going, what am I doing? And so our Gurudev Srila Narayan Raj, he referenced this many verses, but he mentioned something along this lines that our practice should be aimed at a goal, and that goal should be bhav, love for Krishna. Love for Krishna. And so, understand? Yeah, because Krishna is our most worshipful object, but actually Krishna himself is not really our goal. Actually, our goal is love for Krishna and to perform love-filled service for him. So it's interesting like that. It's a very subtle thing actually, but very significant.
Wait, say that part again? It's not.
Our worshipful object is Krishna, but actually our goal is love for Krishna and to perform love-filled service to him. That's our goal, really. That's our goal. And any comments, contributions, questions? Good. Okay. So then the next part of this verse is really interesting because it has to do with the soul, and it brings up a whole nother esoteric conversation that is amazing to hear about, actually, and not something we always get to hear about right away, but it's amazing to hear about. But it's saying nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam hridi sajjita. So sajjita means the potentiality of the awakening of this devotional service, this transcendental devotional service. And really the important thing here is these words called nitya siddhasya bhavasya. So it says that this bhavasya that I'm explaining, this eternal service to Krishna, is nitya siddhasya. It's actually eternally there in the soul. The soul has this love of Krishna there. And so that's why the analogy is given that it's like a seed, This is why Mahaprabhu gives this analogy, because it's there. You just need to water it. And the reason why I wanted to mention all this in relationship to the Bhagavad Gita verses is because it's showing actually something about the spiritual reality, If we only hear like a temporary material, the soul's eternal, it doesn't really like lead us into like okay, well, what do I do, But hearing about this, then we see actually, okay, then the soul's nature actually is this bhava, and by performing sadhana bhakti with this goal in mind, then actually we're awakening our eternal nature. It's actually completely outside of the changing material energy. So it's very profound, actually, an amazing thing that we have contact with and the possibility to perform. And even in this world, people are performing eternal transcendental devotion with their atma, their very soul, for the satisfaction of the Lord. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so I wanted to actually read, is speaking about this verse. Actually, him here, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. a little bit of Sanskrit there, but I think we'll follow.
So, sorry, he's the guru of Prabhupada and Tibetan.
So he's the initiating guru of Srila Prabhupada. Yes, and then he's the grandfather guru of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. So this Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he had a disciple named Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. And that is the initiating spiritual master of Srila Narayan Maharaj. Yeah, so that's like a little family tree. Yeah. You're welcome. Okay. Actually, I'm going to read two, even though, I try not to do too much reading, but because it's interesting, because I don't know, you guys remember we talked about how Krishna is like the spiritual sun. We gave this analogy a couple times. Do you remember, Bobby?
Yes.
Yeah. The purport of this is that though the particle of spiritual bliss emanating from the spiritual sun, that is Krishna, exists within the minute spiritual entity that is the jiva, because the jiva is bound by Maya, that bliss is almost obsolete or concealed at this time. That eternally inherent mood, however, has the potential to manifest within the heart. So here's being explained. This is actually by the father of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. His name's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he's saying that this, within the soul, is something called Ananda. And this Ananda actually, the nature of this Ananda is the Krishna Seva Vasana. The nature of the Ananda is actually through the Sevananda. This is where it's actually deriving its existence.
So,
yeah, Sevananda. And so he's saying that because the jiva is bound by Maya, that bliss is almost completely concealed at this time. That internally inherent mood, however, has the potential to manifest within the heart. So then we just heard about the process by which that's manifested. And then here's another one from his son, Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhakti is the Nitya Siddha Bhav of the jiva. It's the eternally perfected emotional sentiments of the soul. This is essentially the translation. To bring about its manifestation within the purified heart is called sadyata, the attainment of the desired pursuit. The purport of this statement is that in the jiva, who is an infinitesimal particle of spirit, chit kana, that's another name for the jiva, chit kana. Chit means it's conscious, and kana means it's like it's a little spark of consciousness. Chitkan. There exists inherently a particle of bliss, Anandakan, of Sri Krishna, who is compared to the unlimited spiritual sun. When the jiva is bound by Maya, this Anandakan remains practically lost. To cause this eternal nature to manifest within the heart is the one and only duty of the jivas. Yeah, really wonderful. So here's my praman, I guess to just set everything that I've been saying.
So to get Ananda, like the eternal bliss, happiness, you have to detach with the Maya. Maya affects living beings.
So detach is an interesting word, because in some ways we want to detach, like we're hearing with Krishna, with the proper knowledge. We want to detach ourselves from the things that are going to distract. But most importantly, we're hearing from this verse that the awakening, this potentiality, the sadyata, the awakening of this Krishna Seva Vasana is ultimately the thing that's going to awaken this Ananda. Because it's not simply by our detachment that this Ananda is coming, right? It's through actually the sadhana bhakti with the desire for the platform. Yeah, because this is the place where actually the spiritual Ananda will come. So actually there's a point in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says that if someone gets a higher taste, it's called drishta, param driste navartate. He says if one gets a higher taste, then automatically the low is low. So So actually our process is more like this. And there's a really famous verse. Actually, I had it just right here. Let me go find it. Just read it earlier. Oh, it might be hidden. Okay, here. Actually, it's amazing. It's from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:242. With each morsel of food a hungry person eats, he simultaneously experiences satisfaction, nourishment, and relief from hunger. Similarly, a surrendered devotee who is engaged in the performance of bhakti simultaneously realizes his worshipable deity, strengthens his relationship with that deity, and becomes detached from this temporary world and material relationships. So we see actually, Prabhuji, that by the performance of bhakti, then everything comes automatically. Right? Like our Prabhupada, he said that if you want to eat food, if you take the food, you want to eat it, you have to put it in the mouth and then eat it, and then the whole body will become nourished. Similarly, if you want to water a plant, it's actually funny we're using the plant analogy because it's the same thing actually. It's perfect. That if you want to actually nourish the entire tree, you have to water the root. So because this Krishna Seva Vasana is the Nitya Dharma of the soul, if that's watered, then everything comes. Because only detachment, if only desire attachment, then no guarantee that this Krishna Seva Vasana is coming. But by watering the root, by performing bhakti, then everything. And so then that's what's saying satisfaction is coming, the realization of his worshipful deity. He strengthens that relationship, and then he also becomes detached from this material world. But we have to be careful with that also because it's not that we're detaching ourselves from love. We're just purifying and understanding what it really means, because there's something really important called dry renunciation. And in another conversation, actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had another disciple named Raghunath Das Goswami. And Raghunath Das Goswami is my favorite personality. I love Raghunath Das Goswami. I mean, there's so many, but he was actually very, he had a lot of wealth and a lot of opulence. And he had a beautiful wife, and he had so much. And he got the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was so mad for Krishna, he just wanted to leave everything. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him, don't be like a monkey. Don't be like a monkey. And it's called Markata Vairagya. I can show you the verses later. It's really powerful. Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation. And he says monkeys are also living in the forest, not eating very much and living naked. But they have, So he explained, don't be like that. And he said, perform your duties. He says actually like a wife who's has a secret lover, she's gonna actually perform her duties even better than before. But so he said, just like this and perform your duties even better, so that no one will know. But in your heart, always remember Krishna. Always yearn for Krishna's service. And so like this, actually, that's the way. That's the way, not just the removal of external things. Because actually, interestingly enough, renunciation it's a tricky thing, and it actually can be not a detrimental thing, but a detrimental consciousness to actual genuine bhakti, because the principle of bhakti is devotional service for the satisfaction of Krishna and Guru. But renunciation, especially usually from our material mind, is coming from the platform of my personal benefit. Usually it's coming from that. How can I'm suffering, I don't want to go through this, let me give it up. Let me give it up. Well, you'll see actually that this path, there's even great souls who will willingly accept increased material circumstances for the service of the Lord. So externally you'll see, if our caliber of spiritual life is based on someone's renunciation, it's a material conception. because then you might see like okay, how can this be a great person? He's not renounced from this world, but you don't know actually the heart of that personality. In the heart, he might see actually everything belongs to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. And everything I have is all in the service. It's for the service. The Lord has actually entrusted me with all these things, so I'm going to use them for Krishna's service. That's actually renunciation. We have a principle also established by Rupa Goswami. See, now you know these people. It's like called Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya. Very, very, very important principle. Very deep principle too. Vairagya is Sanskrit word for renunciation, and Yukta is like yoga, Yukta. So it's connected renunciation. So it's renunciation that is connected to Krishna. So basic fundamental principle is actually that everything is the energy of Krishna, the Lord, and Guru, everything belongs to them. So how can I use that thing in their service? That's the principle. So, you have a lot of actually, now that we're here in the subject, it's very common to see people desiring some kind of fantasy of renunciation and some kind of life like this, like, it'll be very spiritual. But you'll say even like, if you go to the forest, there, then you have your mind, So we're like a caterpillar on one branch, and we're trying to reach for another branch. Until we grab a hold of that branch, we don't want to let the branch go that we're on. We do bhakti from where we are. And then Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das Goswami, if you do like this, like the one who has a secret lover of Krishna performing their duties, then Krishna will deliver you very soon. He'll do it, because he's actually the one that's, he's pulling the cards, He's doing everything. He can arrange everything, especially if we're serving him, if we're attentive to him, if we're trying to associate with devotees, if we're watering this Krishna Seva Vasana through hearing and chanting with the desire for love for him, then he'll make all arrangements for us. He's already making all arrangements for us. But, he's eagerly also wanting us to bring us up. So actually, when someone comes we were speaking this morning, we were reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, and there were some verses that came up talking about the position of someone who's a really great devotee of Krishna. And you see that devotee actually doesn't care where they are in this world. Actually, once this Krishna Seva Vasana, it becomes strong and deep, that desire overtakes anything. And so they actually become what's called Sharanagati, or surrendered to Krishna's will. So there's great saints in our tradition, they pray, I can go to heaven, I can go to hell. That actually doesn't matter. I just want to be in service, let me keep that going. And so in that in itself is they are completely liberated state. They're beyond liberated state, and there's nowhere in this entire world that they go and they feel actually any anxiety or any fear. And so that comes through our relationship with our Guru and the developing of this process. And there's one more verse that I wanted to read that actually it speaks nicely about this. Because actually this, through this development, the anartana vritti, the nishta, it creates actually the removal of the material pangs of suffering, and which are all like anxiety, worry, fear, all these things about the mental. It creates actually complete and total peace of mind, which is incredible and amazing. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave actually 8 verses called the Shikshastakam, and you guys all have to actually look up this Shikshastakam after. Shikshastakam, 8 instructions that he gave, and they're all about the process of chanting the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He gave this 8 verses, and they actually describe these verses this movement of the Priti line, the Sadhu Sangha, the Nishta, the Ruchi Bhakti, it actually follows the same thing. It's so deep how all this is connected.
The painting that Didi has done of life and death, that's also included in this cycle that you're describing?
100%, yeah. But that painting, the cycle of birth and death, is like sorry,
It's
I was
here.
looking for one too. The cycle of birth and death painting is totally included in that process, but you see that cycle of birth and death painting, it includes the process from the material perspective. It really explains the process of the first word of the verse called ado. The soul is, it appears, it thinks that it's going through this so many lives. So then it shows, this is the infinite, the symbol, the painting. There's birth on one side, giving birth, and then there's death on one side, taking, and then there's the man that's going from baby to boyhood to youth to old age to death. So then this cycle. And then behind there's a mountain, which shows how long this thing has been going on, how many lives. And then there's a little sun, which represents the soul. But it's covered by the clouds. It's covered by this conception of material birth and death. And then there's all the different species. So then it shows that the soul's not only going through the cycle of just human life, but through so many different species. And then there's like alligator, there's like a horse, there's many going from aquatics, like fishes and stuff, coming out of the water. And then there's a man. And you see something so it's showing the rareness of a human birth, because you see actually that all of the different births, they afford one the opportunity for sense enjoyment, for sense gratification, but they don't afford one the opportunity to develop this Krishna Seva Vasana. Only in the human form of life can we do this, actually, because the animals, they can hear, by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, they can hear the chanting, the holy name, and all this stuff, but really in the human form of life, we can sit and we can talk and we can think and we can pray, we can make what's called sambandha, this relationship. And then actually, if we perform this human form of life with this intention, sadhana bhakti, to come to this bhav, to praying, eventually, one day, then actually we awaken our eternal spiritual life. And we completely leave this material cycle forever. So that is actually perfect painting, and it's showing our situation, But actually, all of her paintings, interestingly enough, also show this line, because this line it explains everything. It's so important. It's so important, because what's interesting, and the one thing I wanted to bring up too in the course of our discussion, is that this stage of bhav, the soul actually doesn't remain just a kana, a little particle of consciousness forever. Actually the soul has form and name and personality actually there in it. So this Bhakti Lata Bij, this tree or this plant that's growing, is not only our love for Krishna, but actually our identity. So our very love for Krishna, like that saint, he used the word mood to describe the Ananda. So our mood of devotion actually has the characteristics of like a person. So actually we're talking about a spiritual body, a spiritual form. So in the soul, it has actually an eternal form, an eternal name, actually dress, place of residence.
I know that it's like 1/10,000th of the tip of your ear, and it sits in your heart.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it had form and mood and.
In seed form, it's 1,000th tip of the hair in seed. So this is why I actually wanted to mention this, because that's what, when I said earlier when I was referring to, I wanted to mention it because actually you don't get to hear about this so much, but it's a reality of our thing. This is called something called Swarup. Svarup. Rupa means form, and Sva means one's own. So one's own form. Yeah, so this verse, Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasyana, says this Bhavasya, which Bhavasya is this platform, this first ray of this prema. Bhav is actually a platform where someone gets actually the first glimpse of their own Swarupa in relationship to Krishna. Because self-realization actually doesn't just mean that we realize, okay, now I am one 10,000th the tip of a hair, removed from this material energy, and now I just become Shanti. That's a stage. But going through that, actually, then one can awaken into their spiritual service. Because our service, we have a body to do service and everything like that. So it's very amazing, right? Very amazing. And the particular nature and type of Swarup that we have is characterized by something called our own rasa, our own specific mood that we serve Krishna in, our own specific relationship that we serve Krishna in. There's different relationships in this world that are a reflection of those relationships that are there with Krishna. Like in the mood of a servant, Dasya Bhav, or Sakya Bhav in the mood of a friend, in the mood of a parent, and also Conjugal Bhav, which is in the mood of a lover. So these different rasas are actually, Krishna manufactured these into our soul when we came into existence. So that it's already there, actually. That's what this verse is saying. Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya. It's already there. And so by the watering and the hearing and the chanting about Krishna and Krishna's names and everything, then it starts to awaken our eternal spiritual identity. And so if one does, by the execution of transcendental devotional service, by which love of Krishna is attained, actually if our goal is this, then we're doing sadhana bhakti. So it's good. We have to know about it because then we can hear about it. Yeah. So ultimately, actually, all of this comes through the mercy of Guru. Really comes by the mercy of Guru. Guru is a manifestation of the heart of Srimati Radharani, the divine, compassionate, feminine form of the Lord. And so Guru is also naturally incredibly merciful to us. And Guru, believe it or not, can actually see this Swarup. They can see it.
Can see Swarup?
The Swarup. They can see so like I said, it's all seed. The name, the form, all these things, it's in seed. But they can see the whole tree. The fully sprouted thing. Amazing. They can see actually. And so it's so actually this whole book is about it. It's called the Swarupa of the Jiva. So you see that. So you see how there's different trees. So it says, so an expert gardener can tell by the type of seed what tree it's going to be. Like an apple tree, they see, I guess, apple seed. So this is a really uttam devotee, high caliber self-realized devotee. They can tell actually by the seed. This is the apple tree, Yeah. And so actually by their vision, they know how to water us extra. And so we get like this with them, very, very like this with them. And they can help. And so there's one very beautiful verse, and then we'll probably stop there. It's getting kind of late. But one beautiful verse also from Bhagavatam. Yeah. And I'll read this. Vayam dvitiya vinite satashat isharate tasya viparyamo smriti tanmayata buddha avajatam bhaktya kayesham gurudeva tasma. The living entity who is averse to Sri Bhagavan forgets his own constitutional nature because of his association with Maya. Due to this forgetfulness, he becomes absorbed in the conception that he is the material body, and thus thinks, I am a demigod, I am a human being. In this state of bodily identification, he fears old age, disease, and so forth. Therefore, those who know the truth should consider their own guru as Ishvara, the Supreme. In other words, they should see him as their master, who is non-different from Bhagavan, and who is very dear to him. Through exclusive devotion, they should perform one-pointed worship of that Ishvara, their guru. And then I'm going to read the short purport from Srila Gurudev Narayan Maharaj. He says, when the living entities are averse to the Supreme Lord, they become absorbed in Maya, and thus become materially conditioned. Maya Devi, through her two functions of Avarana Atmaka and Vikshepatmaka, make the living entities wander in the prison-like material existence, suffering its torment by thinking they are the experiencers of happiness and distress. See, this is just so on par of everything that was there in Bhagavad Gita. A person who is resolute takes shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide guru and is thus able to cross over this material existence. There's the Brahmanda Brahmate Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasadi by Bhaktilipta Beach. By accepting the guidance of a guru who has realized Sri Bhagavan, and by being absorbed in intimate service, Vishramba Seva to him, one attains the mercy of the Supreme Lord and material identification goes far away. One will attain knowledge of one's own Swarup, Bhagavan's Swarup, and the Swarup of the illusory energy by understanding the spiritual master to be near and dear like his own soul and by serving him. By the Guru's mercy, the living entity will ultimately be engaged in eternal service in Sri Bhagavan's abode. Understand? Okay. Questions, contributions, comments?
So Vasana is good when you're doing Krishna Seva Vasana.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the other Vasanas, other desires are not good. And Bhakti Lata.
Yeah, actually, really important point. Vasana is our desire. So Krishna actually, there's one verse there, I think Sri Upanishad maybe, he says that Krishna is the self-sufficient philosopher who's been fulfilling all Jiva's desires since the time immemorial. And then there's also this verse that we were going over recently, Nitya Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahanam, Yo, it's something Kaman. He's fulfilling all the Kama of all the Jivas. He's doing this. He's fulfilling their desires. So actually it's profound what you're saying, Prabhu, because it's connected to the whole sadhana verse too. He said the sadhana is that practice which is performed with the desire for love, for me, for Bhav. Then it's called sadhana. So actually our desire, it's a very subtle thing, but why we're performing what we're doing, the intention behind what we're doing is actually very significant. And actually the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, really that's the process that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been given. And these holy names, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it's referred to actually as Chintamani, which means a wish-fulfilling tree. So actually, when we chant this mantra, all of our desires become fulfilled and manifested. So what do we want? That's the thing is we gotta actually, when we take to this, it's important actually to sit down. Maybe literally if you want, but really sit with one's own consciousness and think, what do I really want? What does my soul want? The mind might want all these things, but they're temporal things. Like Krishna is saying, what does my soul want? And the soul wants love. It wants love and love alone, and Krishna's got it, and we can give it. And so, yeah, that's the thing. Actually, there's one amazing, the commentary of this verse. Sorry, I can go on forever, but at some point we have to
read the ocean of knowledge.
Yeah. So there's one this verse, the next verse after the Bhagavad Gita verse we were reading. Can I read this? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Everyone's good? Okay, let's do it. Perfect. So Shloka 30 chapter 2, text 30 is the next verse. Oops, actually, forgive me. Text 29 is the next verse. Yep, text 29. Can someone read actually the translation they have there? Text 29.
Some look on the soul as amazing. Some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so Krishna actually, interestingly enough, is saying in this verse, I have two books that I'm referring to. I know that it's complicated that way, but it's good for me. Krishna is actually saying that this knowledge is very rare and hard to attain, actually, the realization of one's soul. And he says that some look upon the Atma as amazing, some speak of him as amazing, and some hear of him and accept him as amazing. Others, however, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So he says that even for someone to become interested in the idea of Atma is an amazing thing. What to speak of like sitting down and talking about the Atma. And then he said, what's even more amazing is someone actually really understands this. You know, it's because it's one's eternal nature outside of this you know, like Krishna is saying here in a way like it's not like a fairy tale. You know, it's like a really amazing. It's reality, and
Some people understand, some don't. So who don't have bhakti now, it's hard for them to understand.
yeah, that's also there. Yeah, because also we talked about this Arotapata and Nivirotapata, ascending and descending path. So actually, in some of the, it's interesting thing because actually in Prabhupada's purport, in some of these verses, he has a reoccurring theme, and he says that we have, in order to understand this Atma Gyan, this Atma Tattva, we actually just have to literally accept what Bhagavad Gita is saying. You know, like the soul is unmeasurable, the soul is all these things, and Prabhupada said this is like accepting authority, and so actually accepting Veda and Krishna as authority, then knowledge can come because there's some submission and surrender there, and yeah, it's interesting because the descending path is actually for, even though we have to, of course, use our intellect and our consciousness to absorb and understand the information we're gathering, but also to literally hear and accept, you know, what's being given, because it's this knowledge is outside of our material perception. And so realization can come only actually by our humility and, like what Prabhu is saying, most importantly, our service and our devotion. So you see at the beginning of the conversation, Arjuna approaches Krishna and he says, I am a soul surrendered unto you. I am lost and confused. You please instruct me. You know, so this is he's actually setting the path, you know, of the approach and the mood. And the introduction of this Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada speaks amazing things actually in this introduction. And that's one of the things he says is that without becoming a devotee of Krishna, one cannot enter into the mysteries of Bhagavad Gita. He says without becoming a devotee of Krishna, one cannot gain, because Krishna is actually in charge of our knowledge and our remembrance and our forgetfulness. So it comes back to our vasana, our desire. If our desires humbly obtain knowledge for the service of Krishna, then Krishna will manifest all the knowledge in our heart. Because actually, yeah, our Shraddha, exactly. And what's really interesting is that there's two things that are usually, like we were talking about renunciation, right? There's two things that are actually usually mentioned in regards to, there's a famous verse that says knowledge and renunciation come through bhakti, actually. So knowledge also is a very interesting thing, you know, because real knowledge, to know, you know, Veda, comes through realizations that's given to us by the Lord. And even then, if we obtain whatever degree of realization, it's not like I got it, you know. It's still dependent on Krishna, you know. So it comes back even very deep thing that everything is the energy of Krishna and we're Krishna's servants. So even our knowledge is there with of according to our desire to serve and all those things. And so I was going to read Gurudev's explanation about the whole chanting and one gets everything. Since the truth about the science of the Atma is very difficult to understand, the Atma, the person who instructs about the Atma, the instruction itself, and the audience are all amazing. In other words, only some very rare, great persons look upon the Atma as amazing, and some very rare persons hear about the Atma and accept him as amazing. That most of the audience, even after hearing these instructions from one who is Tattvavit, a knower of the absolute reality, cannot realize the Atma is most amazing. This is also explained in Katha Upanishad. Prabhupada also quotes the same verse in this. The opportunity to hear instructions about the science of the self, Atma Tattva, hey, there we go, Atma Tattva, is very rare. Very rare. Even after hearing them, most cannot realize the instructions because a master who is self-realized Atma Tattva Vit is very rare. If by great fortune such a teacher is available, the students themselves who are willing to hear this topic is also extremely rare. It's so cool. Wow. We're so lucky, we're so fortunate. Because we don't get to hear from me, but we get to hear from these great saints. Shalani Didi, she always says when we read or hear anything, we say, "Oh Prabhu, you are not a book." We put the book to our heart and head. Say, "You are directly Prabhupada, you are directly Krishna, you are directly Arjuna, and you are directly Srimad Maharaj." Because actually these souls, they live, they're still present there in their own Swarup with Radha and Krishna, and also they're present in their instructions and their sound vibration. Okay.
Saraswati. The book is also Saraswati.
Yeah, true. And his name is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Yeah, Saraswati. Beautiful. So, if by great fortune such a teacher is available, the students themselves who are willing to hear this topic are also extremely rare. For this reason, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed the Jivatmas. Oh yeah, sometimes they're referred to as Jivatmas. Yeah, Jivatmas. In Kali Yuga, For this reason, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed the Jivatmas in Kali Yuga to perform Sri Harinam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna. If even faithless persons, no Shraddha, chant the holy name of Sri Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, while talking, walking, sitting, standing, eating, drinking, crying, laughing, or in any other way, they will still benefit from it. Gradually, by coming into the association of Shuddha Bhaktas, that's the Sadhu Sangha, they can even attain Bhagavad Prema. That's this bhav, that's prema. They can attain this by chanting in the association. As a secondary result, they can easily attain knowledge of Atma Tattva. And then there's one verse of quoting about the holy name. Krishna Nam is the sweetest of the sweet and the most auspicious of all that is auspicious. It is the flourishing creeper, the eternal, fully ripened fruit of the Bhagavad, and the embodiment of knowledge, Chit Shakti. O Brigamuni, even if someone chants the holy name only once, either with faith or indifference, he is immediately delivered from this ocean of birth and death. One who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants indirectly to indicate something else, jokingly for musical entertainment, or even neglectfully. This is accepted by all the learned scholars of the Shastra. So we can conclude our class by coming to the holy name. It is very most powerful in this Shikshastakam that I wanted everyone to read. Mahaprabhu glorifies the holy name, and he gives the mood to chant, and he gives this submission, this humble mood, and because actually this holy name, our relationship with this holy name is our relationship actually with Krishna.
They say there's no difference between a name and
Yes, exactly. So, Shamarani Didi, she says, for someone who chants purely, all knowledge sits at their feet. And it's coming from one of the lines of this Shikshastakam, Vijayavadu Jivanam. Vijayavadu Jivanam. And even in the first verse of this Shikshastakam, this whole line that I've been explaining is all laid out there. Cheto Darpanam Arjanam, Bhava Mahadevagni Nirvapanam. It's the purification of the heart, Anartana Vritti, Sadhu Sangha is there. Shaya Kadava Chandrika. It's like this bhav that's there in our heart, our love of God is there. It's like this is a nice place to end. It's actually very beautiful. I love this poetic point. There's a lotus flower in India called a blue lotus flower. And this lotus flower only blooms by the moon, full moonlight. So it explains that this holy name of Krishna is the thing actually that blossoms. This everything, our Swarup, everything comes from the blossoming of this holy name by the mercy of great saintly personalities. So it's both. So Bhaktisiddhanta, he left one really great instruction, and he said that everything comes by becoming a servant of Sri Guru and Sri Nam. These two things, Guru, Radha and Krishna. A servant of Sri Guru and Sri Nam. And the third verse of this Shikshastakam gives the mood in which we serve. It says, Chanadapi Sunichena, Tadapi Suhishnana, Amanena Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Means one should chant the holy name in a humble state of mind, considering themselves lower than the straw in the street. One should become tolerant like a tree, because trees are like always giving everyone their leaves and their water and are not expecting anything in return. So we should become tolerant, also like that of a tree. And amanina manadena, we should offer all respects unto others, not expecting any respect for ourselves. And he says in this way, one can go on chanting continuously forever. So anyways, that's a lot given there, but it all makes, it's all connected, right? Yeah. Good. Good? Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitya Gaura, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Nitya Gaura, Hare Bol, Nitya Gaura, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Nitya Gaura, Hare Bol. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. There's this one prayer we chant to all the Vaishnavas. Vancha Kalpa Tarubhishcha. You know this one? No? You know this one, Dinesh? Very, very, very nice prayer. Pretty short too, but goes Vancha Kalpa Tarubhishcha. I think it's in the songbook actually. It's fine. Let me find it. It's on page 6. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Page 6. Prayer to the Vaishnavas. Yeah, to all the Vaishnavas. It's amazing prayer.
Vaishnavas is like devotees.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer pranam again and again to the Vaishnavas, who are the saviors of the fallen, who are just like wish-fulfilling desire trees, and who are oceans of mercy. So this is a wonderful prayer that we pray every day. Okay, Haribol.
Haribol, thank you.
So you are also Vaishnava or?
Yes, definitely.